Good morning, and welcome to this regularly scheduled meeting of the Minneapolis City Council. My name is Barbara Johnson. I am president of the Minneapolis City Council, and I want to welcome you all to our meeting. We have a number of recognitions this morning. We do this sometimes before council meetings if we have special events or days that are special in our community, recognizing special individuals. And so the first group that we're going to hear from this morning is the North High football team. And so I'm going to turn this a microphone over to my colleague, Councilmember Blong Yang, who's, I would say, one of their biggest fans. So I want to welcome, and if you guys, and it's all guys, right? Okay, why don't you come on up and join us so that you get on TV and families can see you and all that. So kind of between both sides here so we get everybody in the camera. We have big guys, too.
You look tiny compared to these guys.
Oh, I know.
Dr. Lewis. Okay. Coach Adams, you want to be right here, too? Oh. Well, good morning. My name is Blong Yang. I'm the council member for Ward 5, and this is a special event for me just because the North High football team this year has just accomplished so much. And this is an extension of what happened last year, actually, because last year they had an undefeated season as well. And this season, they did even better. They had an undefeated season, and then they went to the Prep Bowl in Class A, and we got close. So, with that, I'm going to read the resolution, and then I'm going to, give it up to Dr. Lewis and Coach Adams. I was going to say Sergeant Adams. So this is a resolution honoring the 2015 Minneapolis North High Polars football team. Whereas Minneapolis North Community High School, North High, is in the 5th Ward, and in 2010 it was proposed that North High be closed by the Minneapolis Public Schools. A dedicated group of parents, alumni, and community leaders saved North High. In the wake of the tornado that devastated the community in 2011, the Polars went 0-8. And the North High Polars football team has rebuilt itself along with the community. Under the leadership of head coach Charles Adams, who is not here, but his dad is here. A North High graduate and Minneapolis police officer serving as a North High resource officer has been instrumental to that rebuilding. Starting North High quarterback Tyler Johnson was a finalist for the Minnesota Mr. Football Award, and all residents of Minneapolis will get the opportunity to enjoy Tyler Johnson's incredible athleticism as he joins the Minnesota Golden Gophers football team. And the North High Polars were named the 2015 Minneapolis City Champs after going undefeated in city play for the second straight year. The North High Polars finished their regular season with an undefeated 8-0 record for the second year in a row and beat their opponents this year by an average of 33 points. I think they did it better last year, actually. The Minneapolis North High Polars were the Minnesota Section 4A Class A champions and participated in the state Class A final, whereas the North High Polars made their 5th state playoff appearance in school history, and whereas the North High Polars were the first Minneapolis City Conference team to appear in the Minnesota Prep Bowl. Or put in a different perspective, this is the first time a City of Minneapolis Public Schools team had gone to the state finals in about 37 years. The Minneapolis North High Polars were the first Minneapolis City Conference team to appear in the Minnesota Prep Bowl. The City of Minneapolis is proud to recognize the accomplishment and commitment of the North High Polars football team and its players, coaches, and fans. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Minneapolis that the City Council, on behalf of the people of Minneapolis, hereby honor the 2014-2015 North High Polar team and give recognition to their outstanding accomplishments. Please give it up to them. And Dr. Lewis, I'm going to turn this over to you, but I just have, this team was amazing. I made it to almost all the games, and, watching Tyler Johnson was just special. And also, one last comment, for Antoine Cobble, just, keep your head up. It's a long life, and you are still very young.
Thank you so much, Councilperson. I want to certainly, on behalf of North Community High School, Dr. Sean Harris-Berry, our principal, and our head coach, and all of our assistant coaches, I want to say thank you so much. Certainly, on behalf of the student athletes who really do the hard work, and certainly our seniors and our captains who have done this for a number of years, it is our pleasure to receive this proclamation and certainly be here in Minneapolis at the City Council meeting. So thank you so much. I want to turn it to our assistant coach, Charles Adams, who has an offspring who is our head coach and is keeping it in the family.
Thank you, Dr. Lewis. All I want to say is, it was a North Side thing. We went there, but I'll tell you, at that game, we had so many fans from Minneapolis. It was unbelievable. From my understanding, Osseo, who was a bigger class, we had more fans than they did. So I appreciate the city of Minneapolis coming out supporting our kids. Thank you.
Sure. Anyone else who wants to say anything? Mr. Johnson?
I just want to say thank you to everybody that supported us. We came a long way. Me and a few other of these seniors, we just happy with ourselves. Even though we lost in the state championship game, I'm still proud of everybody in this program.
Sure. Let's have everyone introduce themselves, okay?
I'm Jordan.
I'm Aaron.
I'm Antoine. Leon. Javon.
Keon. Kayvon Mathis.
Tyler Johnson.
Philip Scott. LaQuint Travis. Odell Wilson. Isaiah Matthews.
Armand Dalton.
Nate Wheeler.
Isaiah Rogers.
Michael Harris.
Marlon Whitby.
Glenn Carter. Deshaun Davis. Kevon Dorsey.
Jameer Jackson. Isaiah Ballard.
Marco Beaven.
So please give it up to these players. Thank you so much for being here. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much. Good to see you. Good to see you. Thanks, Charlie. Thank you. Okay. Good job. Good job. Thank you. Okay. The next resolution that we have is the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, and Councilmember Fry is going to introduce that resolution. And Councilmember Palmisano.
Thank you. In a city with such strong female leadership, our council president, our council vice president, our mayor, our police chief, our city attorney, our park board leadership, both our superintendent and our park board chair, the Lynx women's basketball team, for one, just to name a few. It's sometimes easy to forget how far gender equality has come in our city over the years. Minneapolis is a champion of ensuring we advance women and stand up for women and girls in every way. We remain committed and part of an international effort this way. This is an international resolution. And I want to thank Betty Folliard and others for bringing this to our attention and continuing to be committed to it. So, Jacob Fry, could you read the resolution?
I shall. And for those more experienced members on the council, most of whom I believe are women, thank you. And to the city of Broad, and of course, Betty Folliard, thank you. This is supporting Cities for the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, initiative in support of the principles of the UN Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women at the local level. Whereas CEDAW, was adopted by the United Nations General Assembly on December 18, 1979, and became an international treaty as of September 3, 1981, and 187 UN member nations have agreed to be bound by CEDAW provisions. And whereas, although women have made gains in the struggle for equality in many fields, much more needs to be accomplished to fully eradicate discrimination based on gender and to achieve one of the most basic human rights, equality. And whereas in 2014, Minnesota passed the Women's Economic Security Act, which included steps towards closing the gender pay gap, expanding family and sick leave for working families, and helping older women be economically secure. The bill also provided support for women-owned small businesses. And whereas in 2013, the Minneapolis City Council voted to unanimously support congressional reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act. And whereas since the act was first approved in Congress in 1994, the City of Minneapolis has implemented several programs using funds from the act, including the City Attorney's On-Call Domestic Response Team, the Domestic Repeat Offender List, and enhanced enforcement of domestic abuse no-contact orders. And whereas women and girls make up 50% of Minneapolis' population, and with a desire to ensure these women and girls who live in Minneapolis enjoy all the rights and privileges and remedies that are bestowed on all people in the U.S., no matter race, national origin, gender, or religious belief, and with a purpose to claim worldwide that Minneapolis is a city within which women can thrive, and a city that will not tolerate discrimination against women and girls or violence perpetuated against them in any form, by any hand. And whereas CEDAW provides a comprehensive framework for governments to examine their policies and practices in relation to women and girls and to rectify discrimination based on gender. And whereas city and county governments have an appropriate and legitimate role affirming the importance of eliminating all forms of discrimination against women in communities as universal norms to serve as guides for public policy. And now therefore be it resolved by the Minneapolis City Council that the City of Minneapolis is committed to eliminating all forms of violence against women and girls, to promoting the health and safety of women and girls, and to affording them equal academic, economic, and business opportunities in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And if you would like to come up and say a few words, we would really love it, as you've done quite a bit of work. Come on up here. We'll give you the microphone. Please.
Madam Chair, members of the council, thank you so much for bringing this resolution forward. As you know, CEDAW, as it's known, has been around since 1979. It passed through every country, 187 countries out of 194 countries in the world, except for two little island nations in the Pacific, Palau and Tonga, plus Iran, Somalia, Sudan, South Sudan, and the United States of America. Why is that? Well, there's been a lot of politics involved in this. But the fact is that we know what this does. What this does is it provides a legal definition for discrimination. And that's what was missing internationally. CEDAW also, some of you know that I work on the Equal Rights Amendment here in this state and in the country. And the Equal Rights Amendment is inextricably linked to CEDAW because you have to have an Equal Rights Amendment in order to be in compliance with this international treaty. So we work at this both ways. And we want to incorporate the principle of equality for women and men, both here in this state and all across the country. And I won't go into the long list, but we could give a long list of the ways that women still are, all women, women of color, women of all ethnicities are still disadvantaged in this country. So we take this very seriously. We are very, very happy that this resolution is coming up in front of the City Council here and that this city is adopting CEDAW. And this will go next to the state. I have brought along an expert here with me, and her name is Ellen Kennedy, and she is the Executive Director of World Without Genocide from the Hamlin Mitchell Mitchell Hamlin School of Law. Ellen?
Yesterday was an important day. Yesterday was the 67th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights being signed. Your support here in Minneapolis affirms that women's rights are human rights. Nearly 200 organizations throughout the United States, representing millions of Americans, have taken steps like the Minneapolis City Council is doing today, affirming women's rights. CEDAW is important because discrimination against women occurs in our own communities and in our own families. 2 million women a year in the United States report injuries from current or former domestic partners. The United States ranks 41st among a list of 184 countries on maternal deaths during pregnancy and childbirth. Women in the United States earn 77 cents on the dollar that every man earns. Now that's the situation nationally. Here in Minnesota, it is equally as challenging. A recent survey estimates that 684,000 Minnesota women will experience rape, physical violence, or stalking by an intimate partner in their lifetimes. In 2011, Minnesota district courts handled 27,288 domestic violence cases. There were nearly 11,000 orders for protection. And according to the Minnesota Coalition for Battered Women, in the period 2010 to 2014, 93 women were murdered by their intimate partners. Women and girls are vulnerable on virtually every dimension. But today, the city of Minneapolis is standing up for them. Indeed, for all of the women in this room, you, council members, are standing up for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'll be joined by my colleague, Councilmember Cano, to recognize International Human Rights Day.
Okay, good morning. Welcome. And if I may please have our human rights supporters who are going to receive the resolution come stand. Half of you can stand here to my left, right, and then to the left of Council President Johnson. Thank you so much. So it's an honor for me to introduce this resolution today with Peter Brown, who I have known for many, many years and worked on several immigrant rights and human rights issues throughout the years. And I will recognize his partner, Louise Brown, who's also here joining us. And this was a wonderful tradition that was brought to my attention by Peter, who used to be in Councilmember Glidden's ward, and she worked with him on this resolution in years past. And so we thought this would be a good thing to keep going. So I'll go ahead and read the resolution, and then we'll hand the microphone over to folks who might want to say a couple of things about the importance of this action. So this is a resolution of the Mayor and City Council honoring International Human Rights Day. Whereas on December 10th, 1948, the General Assembly of the United Nations adopted and proclaimed the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights guarantees the rights of all people and encompasses a broad spectrum of economic, social, cultural, political, and civil rights. And the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, the Convention Against Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman, or Degrading Treatment or Punishment, the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, and the Declaration on the Right and Responsibility of Individuals, Groups, and Organs of Society to Promote and Protect universally recognized human rights and fundamental freedoms are all international documents impacting the rights of individuals. The human rights treaties were ratified by the United States Congress as part of the supreme law of the land under the United States Constitution and are recognized as such in the 1998 Executive Order 13107. December 10th continues to be recognized as Human Rights Day worldwide, and activities and celebrations mark the significance of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights throughout the week. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Minneapolis does hereby recognize and honor International Human Rights Day 2015 in the City of Minneapolis and encourages all citizens to familiarize themselves with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the Human Rights Treaties, and the role of state and local governments and individuals in advancing human rights, and apply the human rights framework to issues in the United States, the state of Minnesota, the city of Minneapolis, and our community, and we recognize and support human rights in our daily lives. Thank you. So why don't we go ahead and have you speak on this a little bit and the importance of this for the work that you all are leading.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Councilmember Cano. I stand here today as a member, participant in the ad hoc Minnesota work group for the implementation of the ratified human rights treaties that are honored today in this resolution. With me in this work are participants in the work group from left or right to left. Are Kathleen Stewart, a longtime community activist and member of the Minnesota Tenants Union. Fartun Whaley, who is Executive Director of Isarun, a nonprofit organization working in South Minneapolis, particularly on issues related to Somali women's empowerment. To my right, Sherlyn LaChapelle is the president of the Minnesota Black Nurses Association and a member of the executive committee of the Minneapolis branch of the NAACP. And to her right is Farhayo Khalifo, who is executive director of The Voice for East African Women. We stand here together honored and humbled by the fact that the ratified human rights treaties are yet to be recognized and honored as they were initially thought and proposed to be. With me today is my wife, Louise. Louise and I were 4 years old when, in the wake of World War II, leaders around the country, around the world, came together with the realization that the bedrock for enduring peace would be the recognition and the implementation, exercise of a broad range of human rights. The three ratified human rights treaties recognized in today's resolution are part of that stepping forward to implement that broad range of human rights which will stand as the bedrock of peace in our country. The need for attention to human rights is so well exemplified at our local level. Hate speech, as exemplified by the recent attack on a tender of a Vikings football game, bears strong witness to the need for attention. Hate crimes, as exemplified by the attack on Asa Jama, a woman whose offense was to speak a foreign language in a public place. And hate or domestic terrorism attempts to stifle and cow the African American community, as exemplified by the masked gunman shooting five protesters in North Minneapolis recently. All bear witness to the importance and very currency of these issues. So we thank you very much, Madam President, Council Member Cano, other members of the council. We appreciate very much this very forward-looking resolution, which does speak about bearing the human rights framework in mind as we address issues at the local, state, and national level. Thank you very much.
I'm going to call this regularly scheduled meeting of the Minneapolis City Council to order. Clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Cano.
Here.
Wright. Here. Bender.
Here.
Glidden.
Here.
Yang. Here. Johnson.
Here.
Quincy. Here. Worsami.
Present.
Goodman.
Present.
Fry. Here. Palmisano.
Present.
Gordon. Here. President Johnson.
Here.
There are 13 members present.
We have all members present this morning. I just would like to say that I am going to be leaving early. I have a family funeral to attend, and Councilmember or Vice President Glidden will be taking the chair when I leave. Next item on the agenda is adoption of the agenda, and we have two motions. First is a motion by Councilmember Yang to amend the agenda to include under the order of resolutions a resolution honoring the 2015 Minneapolis North High Polars football team. Is there a second on that motion?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries. Next, we have a motion by myself to amend the agenda to include under the order of resolutions a resolution honoring the 90th anniversary of the Twin Cities 40 Club.
Second.
And that's been seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in approval say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. With that, the agenda has been amended. Any further amendments? Seeing none, a motion to adopt the agenda as amended is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in approval say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Next, we have acceptance of the minutes of the regular meeting and adjourned session of November 20th, 2015.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in approval say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Next are referral petitions, communications, and reports of the city officers to the proper committees and departments.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in approval say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. The reports of the standing committees are next, and the first is the Community Development and Regulatory Services Committee, and that committee is chaired by Councilmember Goodman.
Thank you, Madam President. The Community Development and Regulatory Services Committee is bringing forward 13 items for approval this morning. Item number 1 is a land sale. 2 are changes to our Business Made Simple initiative. Item number 3 are clarifying composting regulations. Item 4 is perhaps the most notable item on the agenda. It's a revocation of a liquor license. Item 5 are the regular liquor, business, and gambling license applications. Item 6 is a project authorization analysis for the Hawthorne Eco Village apartment project. Item 7 is accepting money from the LCDA account. Item 8 is Green Homes North Round 5's request for proposals. Item number 9 is issuing an RFP for the homeownership and foreclosure prevention programs. Item 10 is write-off of a city loan. 11 is the classification of tax forfeited land. 12 is our program manual for the vacant housing recycling program. And item number 13 is a change in allocation for our home program income. With that, I'll move items 1 through 13 for approval this morning.
Councilmember Goodman has moved the Community Development Regulatory Services report. Any discussion on any of those items? Seeing none, clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Kano.
Aye.
Wright. Aye. Bender.
Aye.
Glidden.
Aye.
Yang. Aye. Johnson.
Aye.
Quincy. Aye. Warsami.
Aye.
Goodman.
Aye.
Fry.
Aye.
Palmisano.
Aye.
Gordon.
Aye.
President Johnson.
Aye.
There are 13 ayes.
That report is adopted. Next, we have the Health, Environment, and Community Engagement Committee, and that committee is chaired by Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you, Madam President. The Health, Environment, and Community Engagement Committee is bringing 3 items forward for consideration today. The first is approving the 2015 Language Access Plan, consisting of policies and procedures on implementing language services to engage and communicate with residents with limited English proficiency, to be effective January 1st, 2016. The second is authorizing execution of a master contracts with eligible providers of community nonprofit agencies and government and political subdivisions. This would go from January 1st, 2016 to December 31st, 2020, and it would approving designated not to exceed amounts and authorizing staff to issue fund availability notices when project funds become available. The third item is authorizing an agreement with Metropolitan Health Plan to allow school-based clinics to be a participating provider of medically necessary services to eligible students. This would begin February 1st and automatically renew annually for a period not to exceed 7 years. I will move all 3 items forward for approval.
Councilmember Gordon has moved the Health, Environment, Community Engagement report. Any discussion on any of those items? Seeing none, clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Kano.
Aye.
Wright. Aye. Bender.
Aye.
Glidden.
Aye.
Yang.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Quincy.
Aye.
Warsami.
Aye.
Goodman.
Aye.
Fry.
Aye.
Palmisano.
Aye.